Today, Edgetone Studios presents Edgetone Studios. This is my studio tour. That's the studio edition on the right of the house there with the cedar front. This studio was designed by John L. Sayers, the Australian recording engineer and studio designer. Unfortunately, John passed away in September of 2021, just before the studio was complete. So he didn't get to see the final results. But I really appreciate, I was probably one of the last studios he designed, if not the last studio he designed. So here's the entry. There's a kitchenette unit with a little mini fridge, coffee machine. And throughout the studio I've got vintage synthesizer ads. In that case the Prophet ad is from the modern Prophet 10. But as you come over here, you can see that I've got a vintage sequential circuits ad. And this is the little two-piece bathroom. Just a toilet and vanity. And there's a hilarious little Casio ad. On the other side, I've got the classic Yamaha DX7. And as we head back into the entry, you can see there's some acoustic treatment on the end wall and up on the ceiling. There's a secondary purpose there I'll talk about later. But this room can be used as an ISO booth as well. It's wired with headphones and mics. And then through the double doors, you enter the control room. And as you can see, it's fully decked out with gear. There's my studio desk. And these monitors are Amphion 218s, passive monitors. They're just fantastic. I can't believe how great they sound. And then I've got Avantone Mixcubes for frequency restricted monitoring, as well as a Presonus mixing board. Over here you can see my Reverend double agent OG guitar. I got a pedal for my 11 rack. Over there is my Kiloton 5 fretless bass. And as we look at the rack, I've got a classic Roland digital delay, headphone amp, Overstayer analog saturator, the Burl B32 Vancouver summing bus, which is part of my mastering chain, goes through the Mäag EQ4M and then through a Heritage audio Successor. I've got a selection of preamps here. The Jensen TwinServo by Radial is one of my favorites for vocals. I'm running that through a compressor and EQ. Then I've got a Powertube, a couple Burl B1s, a Camden 500, and then an AMS RMX16 reverb unit. A patch bay, custom labels, pretty well everything is patched in constantly. And then the 11 rack is a guitar amp simulator. The pedal board's hooked up to that. As we swing around the back of the room, all these keyboards back here and all the gear in the room is patched in permanently. There's a client seat in the middle, comfortable couch. Here's a shot of the treatment on the ceiling. Got diffusers there. And over here is a little analog drum station to some extent. So this is an analog drum synthesizer, the Vermona DRM Mark I. Beneath that is a Roland SVC350 vocoder. And then my primary drum machine is the Alpha Bass by Jomox. Going through the synthesizers on this side of the room is the Dave Smith Instruments Poly-Evolver keyboard. There's a rack module attached. The Yamaha DX7. We've got the modern Udo Super 6. This is one of my newest synths and it's just fantastic sounding. And then right above that is the Moog Sub 37 for that Moog sound. And then the drum units here are all patchable to my classic 80s Octapad 2 with a separate kick input. This is my bass rig. My primary one is an orange 4-stroke bass amp and a Bergantino NV115 cab. A variety of pedals. My Sans Amp YYZ, because I'm such a Rush nerd. Compressor, chorus, couple distortions. And then this is my main player. It's a G&L L2500 custom shop with look at that wood binding, black binding on the neck with the block inlays. The synths on this side include the Prophet 10, which is the modern recreation of the Prophet 10, the Korg DW8000, the Roland D50, probably my favorite synth of all time, and right above it is the sequential OB6 for that Oberheim sound, and the DW8000 here is hooked up to retroactive DW8P controller for real-time control. And there's my Getson trumpet. Little filing cabinet, and then I've got Geddy Lee's Big Book of Bass signed by Geddy Lee. I got to meet him at Boland Books in Victoria. The Art of Rush. And then for studio reading, there's a variety of books on composition, lyric writing. There's a few more on this side. Again, lyric writing. We got Moog's Patch and Tweak. And Super Swede, the story of Hagstrom guitars. So as we continue on through, we go into the tracking room. Now, one of the goals with the studio was to have lots of natural light. So with the front windows and sliders, lots of natural light makes it into the control room. Got a drum kit set up in here permanently. That mic is a Bee's Knees Ellie, which is a U47 clone. Sounds fantastic. And then I've got overheads here mounted on the ceiling to keep them out of the way. And this drum kit is a vintage 1977 Premier out of England. I got a great deal on it from a fellow in Victoria who was selling his entire drum setup. A couple more of my basses and my secondary bass amp. This is a Trickfish Bullhead 0.5K and another Bergantino NV115. The jazz bass is a 2010 crafted in Japan 70s vintage. And then I've got this Reverend Decision P PJ bass with a custom neck that I put on. Here's the drum kit from the other side. Some of the cymbals. I've got another tom for this kit, plus a few more cymbals. Headphones in the corner. And here's the tracking room from the other side. And here you can see the ceiling treatment as well with the diffusers. All part of the sound treatment that John came up with. And then on this wall I've got some more vintage synth ads. These are the SH101 series of 3 ads that were put out in Keyboard magazine in the early 80s. One per month, featuring each of the different colors of the SH101. And of course, my favorite synth, the Roland D50. There's acoustic bass in here. And then for piano sounds, organ, Rhodes, the Korg Stage Vintage, semi-weighted. And then I've got an ASM Hydrosynth here. And both of these are connected into a keyboard amp, a trainer there. And then I've got a Vox AC15 for guitar tones. And just behind there are the XLR runs to the control room, as well as the 6 headphone connections. And then 2 of the XLRs are set up to be for a PA, which I don't have in here. And then this little box I'm going to talk about in my next video. It's pretty cool. You'll learn all about it. Through this door is a hallway that connects to the house and to the backyard. Let's flip on the light. So that's the main house there. And I've just got it decorated with some Rush album covers from various eras of Rush. And then on the other side, I've mounted the designs for the studio because they were just so cool. I didn't want to throw them out when I was done. A couple more vintage ads for Korg's Poly 6 and the Mono Poly. And then the back door, which apparently is locked. So as you head out the back, we've got a little patio. There's a covered area as you exit. A little terrace area. And there's the back of the tracking room. So those are the windows you're seeing from inside. Lots of natural light. And then a little patio hangout area for break time. It's usable most of the year here on Vancouver Island. And let me just go up into the yard here and give you a view of the back door, because the contractor did a wonderful job on this cedar beam work here. We just wish this was at the front of the house because it looks so nice. But it looks nice at the back of the house too. So that's pretty well all the spaces. As we head back in. So here's the tracking room again from the other side. So you could fit a full band in here. You could isolate drums in here, have guitar played in the control room, isolate a vocalist in the entry here if you wanted. It's just a lot of ways to set up. And then the drawers in here are not full of food or cutlery. They're full of connectors and instrument cables and mic cables when they're not all on the drums. And then under the sink here, I keep a soldering iron for cabling fixes or instrument repair. And then usually the coffee sits in here, but it's all on the counter at the moment. And then in the next drawer are some microphones. I've got the Blue Dragonfly pair, some SM57s, B52, the heel fin. And the lower drawer has an alternate snare, pork pie percussion snare. There's also another guitar pedal in there. Then down here we have the closet for the entry, which is where you can store some coats, but it also has microphone stands. I've got some gobos for placement between instruments for sound isolation. And then over here behind these panels is actually some storage. So there's more microphones in here. I've got a couple M-Audio Sputniks, M-Audio Pulsars. There's a blue woodpecker. And then headphones. And in the other side, the main purpose of this is my data closet. So there's a Wi-Fi and a router in there, and then storage of boxes and manuals and things. A few more cables and boxes. And on the ceiling, the panels up there, let me just show you those. These are actually hatches that open up to the AC units and heat exchangers. So there's one for each of the rooms. One of them does the entry and control room in the hallway. The other one does the studio, and as you can see, there's lots of ventilation. So these things are dead silent. I've had them running and not even known they were on. The fridge in the entry makes more noise than they do. And here you can see them. That's the heat and cool, and that's the air return up there. So that's pretty well it. That's my studio. Hope you enjoyed the tour. There's one more view around the control room. So feel free to book a session. Come do some recording. Add some vintage synths. Thanks for watching.